PowerShell, right, everyone? Right room? Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is PowerShell. If you're in the wrong session, you can sit there quietly. If it starts to go over your head, just the door is there. I don't mind if you walk out. This is PowerShell in the enterprise. My name is Andrew Nakamura. I'm a senior SQL DBA. I work for Keck Hospital. It's the medical center at USC. I have a couple of colleagues here as well. There's Peter and Sarkar, so they're here out to help me out here. This is PowerShell in the enterprise. Before I begin, my Saturdays are usually teaching, and unfortunately, I'm teaching in Bible class all day. So I'm used to crowds like this, except it would be a terrible thing if I didn't start off with a little prayer. My students would look at the video and said, "What are you doing on Saturday? That's our day of worship." So if you bear with me, I just want to say a small little prayer so no one freaks out at my church. So let me just bow my head for a little bit if you would like to join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing me here so I can preach the gospel message wherever I go. Help me to be a good citizen for your heavenly kingdom. In Jesus' holy name I pray. Amen. So with that out of the way, PowerShell. A little bit about Keck Medical Center. I had to put a plug in for my company. We're the university-owned academic center, top medical school in LA. We have a USC Care group. I don't know if you know that we're a medical group as well, so we do take on other people, not just patients in hospitals. We have outpatient facilities all over Southern California, and we're the largest private employer in LA. So if you're in and around LA, the link is there, usccareers.usc.edu. The good thing about working for USC is, anyone know? You get to go to school for free, right? They pay for 1 degree, and if you stay there 2 years, your kids will also go for free. So highly recommended. If you have family, might want to push some buttons, let us know. Maybe we could slide you in somewhere, right? So good to have good contacts. You at least have 3 in the room that can kind of guide and work your way. But this is where my journey began. PowerShell. Don't you feel like that? DBAs in the room? You feel like that firefighter all the time. You have that, oh no, the server went down, help, right? And then you're always fighting the fire. That's how I kind of felt before PowerShell. Because I was always going, server was down, do my little fix, reboot something, fix something, and then you move on to the next fire. You never have time to go back and find out how you could have prevented that, right? How many bought vendor-based tools to do that, right? Do all the monitoring for you, so you could just monitor your SQL servers, monitor your environment, so server goes down, it pages you or does something, right? But those are a little expensive per machine if you didn't figure that out. And do they just give you one lot of license, or do they sell you the whole thing, right? The whole thing. Before it's only $2,000 per instance. Oh yeah, sure. That thing will be $500,000 given the good sales rep, right? So you want to go with a vendor-based solution if it's very complex and you don't have that PowerShell training. And hopefully today we will discover that. How many are using PowerShell today? Very good. Anyone using it for SQL Server? All right, more than I expected. Because what's the problem with SQL Server, DBA, and developers not using PowerShell? What's the problem? Let me tell you. So here's some of the common mistakes of PowerShell. You don't feel that you need to learn it. Why learn something when you got SSMS? Why learn something you got query? So why learn it? What's the whole big deal, right? We have our tools. The problem is that tool is just one tool. It's just a hammer, right? And you just bang on your problems until they're solved. But that's one way. There might be a better way, and hopefully we'll discover why. There might be a better tool out there that you might discover might handle it a little bit more elegantly, easier, one-line command kind of thing. So highly encourage you, and this is why you're all here, learn PowerShell. Another mistake is you get that Lone Ranger mentality. How many Lone Rangers in the room? You want to just do it yourself. You figure you could just learn everything by yourself. That's how I felt. The only problem is it takes a very long time to get up to speed. It took me to design the monitoring system we have now at USC 2 years. I don't know if you have 2 years on your plate, but this talk will save you 2 years. How about that, right? So if you just get the scripts, look at the scripts, take a look, that's 2 years worth of work from me. That's the problem with doing by yourself. Don't do it by yourself. Just come to SQL Saturday, grab the scripts and say, hey, I'm smart, right? So the next one, right, is you have no roadmap. Why should you learn PowerShell if there's no learning? This is what you need to learn first. This is next, and here's where you should be at the end of 6 months. There's nothing like that out there, right? We got plenty of certification roadmaps, but still that doesn't show you exactly what do you need to do, what do you need to learn, right? So there's nothing like that in PowerShell. So it's kind of like this gray area. When you go into PowerShell, what happens? You're an Exchange administrator. You're an AD administrator. There's hardly anything you find on database, specifically SMO. And that's what we'll talk about today. And probably the last big one is there's no big guy mentoring, right? There's no one you can contact to say, hey, I have a question, it's not working, tell me. So hopefully you write the email address, just email me and you got your problem solved. What better way is that, right? You get the mentor right there. So that's the problem with, I see, learning PowerShell. There's kind of this barrier. And once you overcome this barrier, you become PowerShell experts too. Anyone recognize that? That's SQL Core. One of the reasons why you want to learn PowerShell is what will you do when you log in and RDP to your server and you get that? See, because one day you're going to have this Lone Ranger system administrator goes to an event like this and says, I can do Core. And you know what you can do? He can remove the GUI. He'll just go in there and remove GUI. But he won't tell you, right? Till you accidentally log in, you said, what is that? Well, you know what to do? Yeah, what happens when the GUI is removed? Now you think, like my junior DBA tells me, the window will always be there. That's Microsoft. Oh, be careful, right? PowerShell is baked into all the products. That's not just for a little tool to replace the command prompt. PowerShell is going to be there, and it's coming on strong. How many know that there's already PowerShell 4, right? How many know there's already PowerShell 5 coming out very soon, right? So they're already having PowerShell things. Now, why would you want to do this? Especially for us that have lots of multi-environments. Why would you want to do this? Anyone run VM in here for your test labs and stuff? Anyone run Core? Nobody running Core on your VM? Let me tell you why it's very important for you to run Core on your VMs, on your test labs. Because you don't have unlimited memory. You don't have 32 gigs of memory that you can give. Oh, maybe you do. But you don't have unlimited memory to dedicate 4 gigs to your virtual sandbox in a SQL server. I have 7 SQL servers on one machine, 12 gig of RAM, 7 SQL servers, plus a domain controller. I have an entire environment, 8 machines running on one VM, 8 machines. How can I do that? I have Core running on everything. Every time I run Core, on my AD controller, I run 384 megs of RAM. That's it. On my SQL boxes, I only run 512 megs of RAM. If you pair your SQL server, because you're not going to simulate 50,000 users or even 1,000 users on your SQL machines. You're just testing always on, right? You're just testing some functionality new in 2014. Anyone install 2014 yet? All right, very first one, right? This is a 2014 screenshot. The next reason why is, anyone know this? Managed service accounts? No one heard of this, right? Managed service accounts you can only install through PowerShell. There is no GUI in Active Directory. You cannot right-click and click. There is nothing. You must use PowerShell commands. You think that's the only thing Microsoft is starting to push out that you can use with PowerShell? Now, why would you want to use managed service accounts? Anyone know this problem that DBAs have of trapping the service accounts on your engine, and then you use a separate service account for your agent? Anyone have this? Separate service accounts on each one? How many are changing their passwords like good DBAs and good system administrators every 30 days? Every 1 year, right? At USC, we probably do never, but hopefully we'll get there. But if you use managed service accounts, you don't know the password. AD is controlling the password every 30 days, automatic, and doesn't bring SQL Server down. How about that, right? Wouldn't you want to know that? Yeah, that's cool stuff, right? You never need to know the password. Oh, auditors would love you, right? When they come in and they say, let's see the list of your SQL Server agents and no passwords. Oh, they love that, right? Very good. You pass, right? Rather than, let me see the last time you checked and resetted that password on that SQL Server box that you got 1,000 databases on that's running a 3-node cluster. You don't want that, right? You want it automatic. You can only do it through PowerShell. That's not the only thing that's coming down the PowerShell pike, right? With new stuff and new features, PowerShell is coming. So let me tell you how this talk will work. This is kind of the overview on how you would move yourself from no PowerShell to expert PowerShell. This is kind of the track you should be looking at. First, you want to learn SQL management objects. How many know SMO? Couple people? SMO is your key to learning PowerShell for DBAs and developers. If you have anything to do with SQL Server, you must start to play with SMO all the time. The second thing is functions and modules. Can't get away with functions and modules, right? How many PowerShell guys here? Right? I know we had one over here. You have to use functions and modules. There's no way you can get around it. You can't just keep typing get service, get Win32, logical disk. You can't keep doing that, right? You got to be putting it in functions and put it in modules. The next one is you have to learn how to format the XML, because this is how you are going to push it into your database, which is the end step, right? All PowerShell commands is just that output. That's nice, right? DBAs looking at screen output. Yeah, it's nice, putting in a little CSV file, text file, but how many DBAs don't like that? I don't like that, because why? It's just a one-time snapshot. I want to see it every 5 minutes on my services. Are my services up? Are my services up? So I don't want to keep doing this. I want to schedule this in a job, write it in, write into the database, do a query, and fire out an alert, database down. That's how I want it, right? I want the results inside a database, which is why you want to push it into a database. Stop doing get service, right? And then that's all you do. And just, that's only good, why? Right then. But what about 2 o'clock in the morning? You don't want to be typing get service, right? So that's why you want to learn how to do this method. So the first one, SQL management objects. This is the two if you're a DBA. Well, maybe if you're a developer. These are the two ones you'll use all the time. These are the two. You'll use Microsoft.SQLServerManagement.SMO, and you'll use Microsoft.SQLServerManagement.SMO agent. Now, this one, SMO, is basically the superset, right? And then agent, server, right? But server and agent are basically the two that you will use most of the time in your code. So learn these well. These are the ones. When you use a new object type, so if you guys don't know PowerShell, you basically can make new objects, and the object is basically the one that I'm telling you, .server. You can use something called PS object, that means PowerShell object. That basically means you take two commandlets information and you squeeze them together. Sort of like two tables, and then you have that identity key that joins them. Same thing. You're just basically putting all the information you'd like into an object. So you're going to format this object and push it into a database table. The next one, of course, you go through your functions and modules. Once you learn how to do your little commandlets, you do your little SMO, the next thing you have to learn is the functions and modules. You have to be able to put the functions into a module. That's very important for your learning curve of PowerShell. If you don't know how to do that, you're kind of limited in always doing command line stuff. Once you get to modules, you're pretty advanced, right? You want to do stuff like function and then invokes database query. And then you save that function, that output, into your database, right? It will format, and you push all the results into the database. That format XML, that's the one that troubled me a lot, because I'm not an XML guy. Now, XML is not hard once you have a template. Once you have a template, you could just go in there, right? And the field you're looking for, you just change the name of the fields. That's basically all it is. And you just get the XML. You can get it from anywhere, but you get the XML but where do you get it to what you want it to be? Because maybe you don't want the same stats and monitoring that I'm doing. You can take the XML code that I'll give you, and you can just modify it. Don't try to redo it, the entire piece yourself. Let me show you what kind of XML I'm talking about. This is the XML I'm talking about. You see there's the SQL.tools. It'll flash here a little screen. You'll all have this for download. But this is basically how it looks at. So you basically have SQL tools, and you'll have a bunch of column names. This is what gets passed to the database. So you're going to write your little function and module, and it's going to use this thing that you set up. So you don't use the default XML. That's the key. That was the key for me. If you use the default one, you'll never get it into the database because it's always defaulting. You know when you type out the PowerShell command, you realize it's using a formatted XML. That's how you can see all the lines, right? So when you type get service or something, it's using an XML formatter. It's the default one. You cannot use that to push into a database. If you try, you will fail, right? So just use the one I give you, right? It's really easy. You get this one from, of course, Microsoft, but it's very difficult because they're not talking about what? Databases. What are they talking about? They're talking about OS. They're talking about memory. They're talking about everything but what I want. I want database, right? So this is one for databases. So this was an easy one you can just get and use. And of course, lastly, you want to put the results that you get. So functions and modules, right? What's the next step? Formatted XML, and then finally into database, right? So that's the sequence, right? So you learn the commands, learn the SMO part, then you what? Functions and modules, and then what's the next one? XML, and then into your database, right? That's the strategy. That's what you want. Now, when I show you this one is the most complex one because it's got another layer. How many know that when you go to SQL Server, right, and you find a job has failed, like your backup job, how many times you got to go, and what's the level? Go to SSMS, and then what? You got to go to SQL Agent, right? And then after SQL Agent, you got to look at the job. And then after the job, what? You got to look at the history. Well, maybe that job has a multi-step. Anyone have that? Like 5 steps? So you got to figure which job, right? That's why it's the most complex, right? Because any server object, like memory, that's right there, right? Properties, you get it right there, bang. But you see the agent is very deep down. You have to go through several layers. That's why I picked this one, because it's the most complex monitoring that we have that takes a lot of code. The other one, like check disk space, check your RAM, check uptime, those are relatively easy compared to the agent because the agent is deep down. So today I'm going to show you the agent part. So we're going to do a little walkthrough. So this is my PowerShell, and I'm going to make a connection right here. So I'm just using a variable, and I'm doing the new object, just like I said, right? And there's my type name. And what do you think that would be? I'm going to use a SQL client, right? That SQL connection. And then that's my variable there. The next thing I'm going to do is my connection string. And I'm just going to put server equals, and then developers know this, right? You must do this all the time. This must be hardwired into developers, right? So that's a line that every developer is used to. Not for DBAs, but for developers, you kind of know this by heart. I don't, which is why I'm pausing there. Trusted equals what? Equals true. And then our next line, it doesn't crash right here. Connection dot connection string and so anyone knows what that line does? You just tie the two together, right? So it's not very complex. I'm going to make a create command there. And here goes the query. Insert, right? So basically I just made a connection, create command. Now I'm going to use a query so you kind of know where that query is coming from. And I'm going to insert into test, right? That's my table name. PowerShell is great. And then you're going to make the connection. You'll open the connection. So developers, you kind of know what I'm doing, right? It's not that hard to figure out. It's no rocket science here. It's pretty easy, right? You just open the connection from here. And what do you think I'm going to do? Got to execute the query. This is the step you kind of want to play around with because this gets you all the pieces, right? So I'm doing PowerShell right here, right? So there's my SQL test, right? And we'll execute that. Nothing there, right? So I go back. I'm going to run my PowerShell query. And unfortunately, you can't see, but it says 1. That means successful. So then you go back to, and you run. And yes, you have inserted some data, right? So you now know the connection is there. So now okay, yes, now I can insert data. Now you could leave it at that, and you could do commands. Now how many are at that level, right? Because that's the basic commandlet level. But you need to move yourself from command style, just like that I showed, to function and modules. Now, when you play around with functions, they get a little hard to play around with because there's a little bit of formatting you have to understand. This is not stored procedure. It's similar to stored procedure, but this is not stored procedure. So it's a little syntaxy. I'm going to show you a tool. This is called PowerShell, powertheshell.com. This is called, how many heard of this? Steroids. ISESteroids. Great little tool, right? You can get it from powertheshell.com, steroids download, right? And when you go here, you just scroll down, tells you a little, you just right click on that, but please read the instructions, and I'll show you there, right? So you'll actually save it, right? And it'll go. But please read these instructions, right? It says unblock. Otherwise, it won't work. So you open it up. Just follow the little thing there, right? And right-click, properties, and unblock. Then extract to your modules directory. Now, why would I use a tool like this? And I'll show you in a minute. And you just take that, and you're going to extract it. And everyone know where to extract it? This is intermediate class. Some of you are beginner. So you extract it into your My Documents folder, Windows PowerShell modules, right? Name a folder, probably ISESteroids is good. Click OK and extract, and you're good to go. Now, you have to load the module inside of PowerShell. So close all your little windows. Come down here and you start steroids, which is the command to load the module. So you'll go there. There you go. And when you run that command, it basically loads the module up. So you now have start steroids. What will happen is, if you've done it correctly, you'll see that. You accept the license agreement. And it'll spin away, and you see initializing ISESteroids on the bottom, and it'll spin away, and your top bar will change. Imagine that, right? So your top bar up there will change, and the one you want is the blue pill, not the red one. The blue pill, please. You click the blue pill, and that gives you the options toolbar. It's a lot of cool functions up there, right? So why would you use this tool? And I'll show you in a minute. There's our little command that we just did, right? Insert into database. So you just highlight everything, right-click, turn into function. So you click there. What do you want to call it? I want to call it invoke, let's say, how about database? And it gives you, what do you want? Do you want the connection as a parameter? So it gives you the parameters there, right? So you click OK, and voila. You now have a function. Oh, I just took all the fun out of making functions. How many know PowerShell, right? Writing functions? Oh man, what a pain, right? You have this tool? That's pretty cool, right? But I don't need all these parameters here. So there's a little cleanup you have to do. And that's kind of what I'm doing. I don't need all these connections and stuff like this. What I need is on the bottom, right? So I do need parameters. So it's not a solution for everything. You will have to know how to write functions. This just kind of sets it up for you. All the documentation up on top, as you can see, is all done for you. So you just kind of fill it out. So basically here what I'm doing is I'm setting 2 parameters, right? Because I want the string to be connection string, so I don't need that. So I'll just put that up there. And what else do you think I need? I'm probably going to need something called, you have to define, right? String. I'm probably going to need query, because I'm going to pass, this will be my base database connection, because I'm going to pass connection and query all the time. That's the reason why you use functions. So this will be my generic connection to my database. So now, once I fix all of this and clean it up, of course I got to get rid of all that, but you'll see that I'm just cleaning everything up and turning it into a much more mobile type thing, so I can call this from not just command line, I can call this from various modules, right? Because that's what I'm setting up. So I'm doing if ps commandlet, right? Should process. So if the query is correct, insert database, right? So it's basically the same one we had, it's just a function now. That's all I've done. So I just used the tool, it flipped it into a function. Yes, you can go, you don't have to buy the tool, but you can spend like 2, 3, 5, 10 hours just doing the same thing I'm doing. Or you could just right click and be done. So there you have it, right? Looks pretty good, right? Gives you all of that. I didn't fill that out, right? So it looks good to go, right? So you could probably save it, but wait, there's more, right? Because you really want it in a module. You don't want it like this. Function is okay, but you need this in a module, because the module you'll be able to pass parameters to. So you really want this in a module, so let's just save it for the heck of it. Before you save, I guess I thought about this. Before I show you, before you save it, why don't you just turn it into a function? Why you go through the function, then, turn it into a module. So go up to the top, click on the little function, and voila, export to module. Now how about that, right? Those of you who know PowerShell, this is hard to do, to flip it into a module, and I just say database, right? And now I've just turned my little function, as you see there, invoke database, is now a module. Done. Now that step, that took me a long time to learn. Doing functions in module, you'll see, you need to do all of that, right? Before you ever get it to module. Have to learn how to do function in modules. Now I can do import module, SQL database. That imports this module. And now I can do stuff like this. Connection. Come on. Connection string equals. And you know what I'm doing here, right? Because there's no connection string in this, right? It's just taking a parameter. So I'm taking connection string, and I'm giving it the connection string. What advantage is that? Now I can call it from everywhere, right? I can call it from everywhere and just use this, and I can change the database now, right? Pretty cool, right? I can change the server. I just changed the connection string. See? Now I just made a nice little tool for me, and I can now access my database. Now I'm going to do a query, a non-query. So my query is going to be here. I'm going to say insert into SQL test. PowerShell is beautiful. Make it something different so you guys know that it actually works. And now how do I run this? You just go invoke, and look at that. Database query comes up. That's because I loaded the module, and it knows what parameters I'm looking for, which is connection string. Right there, right? So you know connection string is coming up. And now my connection string, I put into a variable, which is connection string. And my query, which was right here, is the query $. And I enter. That's PowerShell is beautiful, don't forget. And I get a 1, meaning database done. Go back here, SQL test, voila, right? So now I got into a module. How cool is that, right? So you can use a tool like ISESteroids. You don't have to, but it's the long road to get there, right? So just use the tool, right? You get a 10-day trial for the tool, but if you go through me, I have a 30-day trial. So highly recommend. At the end, you'll see, just subscribe to the newsletter. I'll give you where the 30-day license is. So there we are. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my goodness, am I going to remember all this? No, you're probably not, which is why I'm recording this. The video's there, so you have video, audio. We'll put this up online somewhere. I'll give you all the scripts that I'm using, including the formatted XML, including all the test scripts, so you have them all, so no need to panic there. But I'm going to show you the best part about this, right? How do I get it so I start pushing stuff, especially the agent? That's what I'm looking for. So we'll walk through this one. So we ended up here. Remember that ugly XML thing? So I'm going to save that, and you have to save it into your little thing there, right? So I'm going to make a SQL Tools directory. That's going to be a module, right? Because it's under my modules. And I'm going to save it. This is how you save your formatted XML. You're going to use that one, PS1XML. That tells PowerShell, use this instead of the default XML. Use my XML here. That tells PowerShell, oh, there's a formatted thing I have to use before I use the default. You tell PowerShell, I want to use that one. So that's how you do it. So we're going to actually walk through the code. So I hope you have your thing. I'll stop it if it's going too fast. And this is where I was thinking that it was going to work. So if it's going to go here. Okay, so we're going to import module, right? How many know import module SQL PS? SQL PS is the module you'll need to load all the SMO objects. So you can do disable name checking if you want. So I'm going to import our SQL database, the connection one we went, right? There's my connection string I'm going to pass to it. And here goes the function. I'm going to make 2 functions here. The first function is going to get job info. These are my parameters. This is how you write a function. So here's my commandlet. So I'm just telling what stuff can be accessed through this function. So basically I have a couple there, right? One named server name. That's the one you required there. So this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to, for every server in server name, so I can loop through, right? I can give it a text file. I can pipe out names, computer 1, 2, 3, 4, and then just loop. Right? So for every loop, I'm going to test, is this server alive? So I'm just going to ping it, and basically that's what that loop does. So if everything's okay with the loop, do this, and here goes the SMO. So here's the server. I'm going to type it out, right? You're always going to use that command. Always, always, always. You never get away with that. Here's the jobs. It's in a job server. That's where it is right here. So I just tied a job server, and I only want those that are enabled, those jobs that are enabled, and those that failed. I don't need to see successful ones, right? Why would I want successful? I just want the ones that failed. For each job, in jobs, so remember it could be a multi-step thing, so I have to do a for loop again. And this is where I kind of stop, so it will go a little faster than this. So if you want me to pause it, I can. So here's that one where I was telling you can the PS object part. So basically, I'm taking all the details of the information from that agent, and I'm just going to stick it into PS object. I know that was fast. But basically, you see what I'm just sticking into an object, and I'm going to insert it into SQL Tools, that SQL Job info. So that's basically all I'm doing. I'm taking all the stuff I want, which is job name, last run outcome, last run date, and of course, the server name called computer there. And I'm just going to run this. So you'll need another second function. That second function is, what do you think? It's going to need to push that information into the database. So I need that second function here. As soon as it comes up, and it'll probably go much faster. What do you know? Set SQL jobs in database. Kind of clear, right? So you always use the verb noun context in your functions. And again, I'm doing parameters, so it can accept parameters. That's basically how you write the functions and parameters. And then I'm going to begin my process. Again, another for loop, right? Because I'm taking this whole property object, and I'm going to insert this into SQL Jobs, right? And that's server name, job name. So it's just going to take the PS object and dump it into this table, whatever's in there. So all that server is just going to collect all the job failed information and stick it into this SQL Jobs table. It looks very complicated, but it's very easy. If you can get this, then you can get anything into PowerShell into a database. So then I'm just going to invoke database query, connection. Notice that? That was the same one we did, right? And of course, at the end, you're going to export module member, and you're going to export the 2 functions I just wrote. Now you're going to save this. I'm going to call it SQL Tools. Come on. And you're going to use PSM1. That's a module name, right? That's how you save your modules. So now that I save that, come on. Now I'm going to import SQL Tools. That will import the module that's right here, right? Oh, import module SQL Tools. I'm glad I didn't type that. So now I should be able to reference these 2 functions. Now, you could have used the ISESteroids, but it can be a little messy, right? Because I have 2 functions in this. So you can see how you might get a little piece in here. Get SQL Jobs info, which was up there. Server 1, that's my server name. So I'm just going to pass this server name. Good, right? So see result set. Very good. Get SQL on, pipe it to set SQL Jobs in database. So I'm just piping it, right? Pipe these results and push it into the SQL Jobs database. Yes?
Do you have like a list of servers in a table and then...
Yes, that's what that parameterization was. So that SQL Jobs, I'll get to you in a minute. And then you go there it is, right? So the parameterization tells the PowerShell function, yes, accept any type of inputted data, especially for computer name, server name. You can use a table, you can use it from a text file, CSV, or you can type it in, right? Server 1, server 2, server 3, if you're just testing it, right? Now, what's the beauty of this, right? Okay, you put the SQL Jobs in there, and yes, it's a little complex and hard to figure out, but the beauty of this is I don't have to do this and sit here. So I can, you see, server 1, I can have it go query my CMS, right? Who knows CMS? Your central management server, anyone using this? I can query the CMS, so I don't have to keep typing out my names, get my list of servers, and slam this in here. And I can do that every hour, every day, every whatever, and query against this, and stick this in a report, and deliver to me every morning. When I go to my inbox, there it is, all my SQL Jobs, and now I know what to look for, right? The cool thing is auditors love this tool because how many can tell me, you know, 7 months ago, you had a job failure on the full backup for this server on this database. Can you tell me what happened? And you're like, what? How many been there, right? Auditor come there, writing down. Can you tell me 2 years ago when your database failed? When the backup failed? Why? You have no clue unless you have this tool. We are running this tool at USC. We've been running it for about 1.5 years. We can tell you every single job that failed. My junior DBA says, I cannot live without this tool. The tools we build, and we just keep home growing them, you know, modifying for our needs. He says, I don't know how anyone can monitor our environment. Imagine your environment. Maybe you can't use this, but imagine your environment for a minute. Everyone got their picture? Imagine it grew 10 times. So if you're watching 100 databases, imagine 1,000 database servers. You just slam this same thing. That's what's cool about this tool, right? You just take all the servers that you get and slam it in all your tools. You don't pay a licensing fee. There's nothing that you have to do. There's no increased cost. You just do some more. So it kind of frees you up once you learn how PowerShell is, right? PowerShell for the DBA is really cool for you if you learn this method, right? You learn the way that I'm using it at USC and my juniors saying, oh my goodness, how would I even start my day? How would I look for stuff if it's not for your scripts, right? So that's what I'm saying. Learn it well, share with others, and we all learn together. Oh, hold on a second. You had a question?
So the server name is blank. That means a local host?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
The question I had is about security. One issue that I went to another PowerShell seminar last year, went back, started, playing with it, and one issue we had we had to have like a common ID, if you will, a
Yes.
login
Yes.
set up on all the servers to allow this job to execute.
Yes.
Okay, and we didn't want to do that because that creates a vulnerability that if that password is ever breached, then that person has generally relatively high level access to all of our servers.
How many saw the connection string? Anyone see the connection string? What was the security method? Trusted, right? Windows authentication, right? So it's using either your DBA account or another account, right, that has admin levels, but it's trusted. There's no SQL login you have to manage. This is trusted. So as long as you have access as DBA, which you should, it should have rights to your SQL job, or it should have at least administrator rights so you can query stuff like disk space, the memory, CPU. You should be able to do that at a relatively level. Hopefully, if you have separation of duties, your server admins would be okay about that. But again, where the security comes in, if you're using trusted, that's probably the best you're going to get, right? Because that's using AD, and you're out of AD, right? Your sysadmins won't let you create a AD account unless you have a VM machine, right? But you're not supposed to be creating AD accounts for your SQL servers, right? So you're going through your probably DBA account or a proxy account of some kind. So you can do that kind of work, but you're using trusted connection.
You're not using any sort of two-factor authentication to log in.
No. Yeah, don't do that, right? Just use the trusted one, and you'll be safe, right? When the auditors see that, trusted, Active Directory, no more question, right? It's like very happy. You want your auditors to walk out like EY with a little clipboard. Very good job. Okay, see you next year, right? Any other question? Yes?
Once you set up these modules, where are you going to set up to run those modules as a job?
Very good question, right? So you don't want to run your PowerShell jobs in where? The agent. You don't want to run these. Why don't you want to run these? Because if the agent goes down, so does your monitoring. So PowerShell has its own jobs scheduler. How many know that? How many use the job scheduler out of PowerShell? This is so cool. How many have sysadmins that mess with your task scheduler jobs, right? Oh, you don't need this job. This backup thing that moves, we'll just kill it, right? And then, 2 weeks later, hey, how come the backups aren't working? Where's the backup? Anyone been there before, right? You use this task scheduler because some domain issue, so you can't back up to a network share, so you back it locally, and then you copy the file. Anyone still do that? Yeah? Back it up to your network share. Imagine you use the job scheduler out of PowerShell. This thing is hidden so deep in the task manager, man, your sysadmins won't even know it's there. When they find it, they have no clue what it's doing. The only thing they can do is disable it. It's hard for them to even delete it. You start using PowerShell Job Scheduler, oh man, you are king, because that thing is so deep, you can't even just click Windows, right? You can't click on the GUI and find out the properties in this. You have to use PowerShell to figure out what this schedule is doing, right? And it's probably just calling a little module, right? But the module is really complex, right? The module is probably connecting to all these servers, gathering statistics of some kind, and dumping it into a table, or dumping it to a text file and emailing. However you want it, but use the job schedule. Why? Why do you want to do it that way versus the agent? Because now you can monitor a lot more stuff than just SQL jobs, than just SQL stuff, right? You can monitor like CPU history, right? Anyone monitoring that CPU history when you have the spikes going up and down? Did you know you can, that's all PowerShell. You can just use PowerShell object, stick it in, and now you have history. How many are collecting that? Anyone collecting CPU stats? How many are just collecting when your CPU just hits 100%? And then keep that for 5 years. No one's doing that, right? Come on, who does that? That's PowerShell, right? You stick that into a table. You only want when it went to 100%, and you only want it for 5 minutes. What were the queries? Stick it in a database, right? So when the auditor comes and he says, we had that big issue back then, what did you do? Well, we have it. We even have the queries. right? You may not even have the database anymore. You know, they might detach the database or something, but you have the stats there. You have your backup, right? So you can back yourself up when the auditor is knocking on your door asking for more stuff, more stuff. You're there, right? Let me finish up the presentation here. So let me review here. Your first step is SQL Management Object. SMO is your key, right? If you learn SMO, you'll find wonders playing around with this SMO. It's very easy. It's actually, you can start playing with it, and it's just a directory. So you can actually go through your database objects, all your server information. How many play with this? You just import SQL PS, and then you can just CD, right? CD all your tables, all your databases, right? Then you learn function and modules. So you go to the next step after you learn that. Start playing with function and modules, learn how to parameterize your stuff. Then you learn the formatting XML, and then you start pushing stuff into your table, right? So you do all this collection stuff, and then you push it into your database monitoring server or your database tables that you yourself, DBA or developer, are watching. So here's where you can get to be a PowerShell Master, right? So you get a 30-day free trial of ISESteroids, PowerShell SMO, ebook, and you'll get more PowerShell news. All you have to do is subscribe, and there's the link, right? andynakamura.com/newsletter. So you go there, put in your information. I don't have it auto set up yet, so on Sunday, I'll just go there. Everyone who signs up, I'll just blast out, and you'll get all the scripts, all the slides, everything that I presented here. I don't know if we'll get the video cut at that time, but there's all the information, right? You can always reach me at andy@andynakamura.com. Yes, my own domain. Everyone should have their own domain, right? Come on, it's like $10. Just bite the bullet, get your own domain. It's a lot easier than saying www.blanketyblank@gmail.com, right? Kind of unprofessional. So just, come on, $10. We're all professionals here, right? So I'll give you a little tip on running your VMs, right? If you want to run 7 VMs on your local workstation, and you cut the memory down to 512, you run core. This is how you install it. You install it just like regular. Next, next, next. Yes, I know you guys aren't command line. So you go next, 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 or yes, yes, yes. Sounds like when I'm talking to my wife back there, and it's yes, honey, click, 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 right? Close your eyes. You go through the same setup, right? Then go to PowerShell, right? And you just say remove dash Windows feature. And you just remove the GUI. Why do you do it through PowerShell? Do you know why? Anyone can tell me why? Because when you use it from the active, the server management console, and you click on, click manage, remove roles and features. Anyone been there? And you click next, next, and then you get to the features, right? And you take off the GUI. What will happen? No. It will get all the tools that needs a GUI. That's PowerShell, ISE. You might have an AD RSAT tool, right? Remote tool that you're using for AD, DNS, clustering. It'll pull out all those tools for you just because they're nice. But you're in a lab. You don't want that. You just want the GUI removed, right? Because what if you have to flip it back? So go to PowerShell. You type in the command, remove dash Windows feature, and then you type, right? The command. I think it's GUI, Windows Management or something, infra. And there's 2 that you have to remove. Click that. Let it do its thing. Reboot. And you have a core box. Both Windows Core and SQL Core. Imagine that. There's no difference in installing core through the GUI. And highly recommend when you begin to do core, just install regular. So you don't mess yourself up. Just install regular, next, 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 right? Then install SQL, next, 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 right? And then just remove the GUI. Then shrink your machine down to 512 megs. And now you have a SQL box running at 512 megs. Now you just duplicate this process over and over until you have your environment the way you want it, right? So if you're playing with always on, how many know how am I playing with always on? You know you need to use 5 SQL servers to get the full test, right? You need 5 SQL servers to do that. How many have 5 SQL servers running at the same time? It's kind of hard to do in a VM unless you shrink the memory down, right? Because you don't need fast. You just want to see it work, right? You're in the lab. You just want to see it work. That's the beauty. Why you want to start playing with core and PowerShell. That's the push for all of you to get good at PowerShell is to play with core. And the reason why you play with core is you got to type. Let me ask you this question. What will you do when Microsoft takes the mouse away? When you look into that server and all you see is a command line box. What will you do? Will you be ready? Because it's coming. Now, you don't think, oh, yeah, I got time. And that's what I thought, right? But look at what PowerShell is. Look how many commands are coming out. And they're just steamrolling through. You don't think they're coming, right? Just like, how many are still using that profiler? Haven't moved on to extended events? I'm there, right? I haven't used extended events either, right? Still in 2014, but they keep preaching, right? Learn extended events. Learn extended events. But you don't have to because it's still 2014. But PowerShell is already baked in the product, in their new products. You don't think that's something that you should be watching? Watch that, right? It's coming. One day you're going to log in and see this box. Now what? That's when you should be ready. You got about 2-3 years. Get good, right? Now's the time to learn it. Now's the time. Come on. We all can get together. You can email me. I'm stuck, right? I can answer you as best I can. Or we have other PowerShell groups, PowerShell mentors out there. So get good, right? So I hope this talk was informative for you. I'm still here all day. Any other questions? Yes? Anyone can answer that? Why do you think they're taking away the GUI? Overhead, resources. Easy to manage. I'll tell you why I like it. Is because I have sysadmins that go on there and they install all kind of stuff. And they don't tell you, right? And oh, it just happens to mess with the engine. Man. And then I go up there, man, did you install this thing, right? You know you're not supposed to be installing the antivirus, checking out the MDF files, right? I think it's for this, the separation of duty, right? They don't want stuff on servers anymore. They just want to go back to the Linux, Unix world server. But, you know, as Microsoft professionals versus Linux admins, we're like $10,000 below. Do you know why that is? Because your manager, your boss, he can do click, 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 next, 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 but he can't do command line. So learning command line, you get a $10,000, $15,000 raise just by learning command line, right? Because your boss or manager, they cannot do command line. They said, oh no, that's too complex. Bring in the good developer. Bring in the good DBA. That's why I want to push you all, right? Start learning command line tools. Get away from the mouse to do everything. Because once it's in command line, right? You just copy and paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. It saves you so much time, right? So hopefully my junior DBA here, he remembers that. So he'll start to do the command line install, right? He's still doing next, 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 next. So hopefully you enjoy your day at SQL Saturday here. Thank you for attending my session. I will put this online. Just continue to contact me. The videos and stuff will be up shortly.